to Reclaiming Filipinx Identity's sixth mental health mukbang. This is awesome. So thank you all for your flexibility and time for to be with each other today. My name is Jethro, he, him pronouns, and I'll be your moderator for this episode. And so, we'll be diving into the broad field of mental health and how it intersects with Filipinx identity.
So my name is Louise Ledras. My preferred pronouns are she, her, hers. I am usually based in New York City, but I am quarantining in New Mexico, and I have been since March.
Hi, I'm Jerry. I'm based in Washington, D.C., and I am one of the founders of Crate for Everything, which is DC's only all-Asian run art and production studio.
Micah, not Mika. So, I prefer to be called she, of course. And funny story, I just recently learned what that's about. So now I know how to answer it. Yay!
I'm also from Hawaii. I'm in Waipahu, born and raised here. And I am part of the Reclaiming Filipinx Identity team.
Today is chicken stew, I guess. There's celery in it and rice. It's really good.
And my merienda is a giant Chipotle baby right here. It's double wrapped tortilla.
And my merienda is not the boy bawang, but the Ilocos chicharron. This is honestly, I think, way better than boy bawang. So that's just my 2 cents.
As for my merienda, I don't have one. I just ate my lunch. I had tinola, which is so good. So it's chicken papaya. I know, I'm sure everybody knows, but
I think quarantine is really bringing up a lot of issues and identity issues specifically. In what do you do now? Who are you actually when the whole world is falling apart? And just figuring out all the details around you. And so I've been kind of sitting a lot with being Filipino, what that means, especially being in America and having been in America for a while now. I grew up in the Philippines for half my life and now half here. So it's kind of am I Filipino anymore? But I always want to dig into that identity. And it's, along with that, mental health has also been really hard because it's kind of hard that we have to claim, being half and half, there's a lot of issues with that already. So it kind of bleeds into your mental health a little bit, in that Filipino is based on King Philip, he's Spanish, who am I anyway? So I'm in America, I'm Spanish, am I this, am I that? So it's just hard to kind of wrestle with. So I wanted to hear what you guys' thoughts were.
I'm excited to be here because I actually know Chachi through Subtle Filipino Traits. So it's really interesting to, just discuss, especially as a storyteller, just what's going on between our identity, and somebody who often looks at myself and the things that I'm doing, especially when it comes to representation, is, what story am I telling and where am I coming from? So I'm excited to dive in that with you guys.
I was also born and raised in the Philippines. I moved to Hawaii when I was 16 years old, and now I'm 23, just graduated at Manoa, University of Hawaii, with my BS Psychology degree, and I am very much interested in mental health. That's why I also that's why I chose that major, because a lot of my families and friends, people really close to me, can resonate with issues and things that are related to mental health. Comes with anxiety, depression, and all of that, and even just thoughts, perspectives that can be toxic, that has I guess that has affected a lot of even Filipinos growing up or moving from the the homeland to here in the United States. And so it's really close to my heart, and I myself personally had to go through some seasons where I had to really deal with it and actually face mental health and its importance at its face.
My mental health journey personally began when I was 21 years old. I was in the military and I just got divorced from my first wife. And so for me, going through that path of like understanding what would have come from this and like where I was coming from and kind of digging into myself and understanding how, you know, situations have turned into what they are, and really looking into myself, especially as an artist, it was a lot, especially for me to understand myself as an adult, especially because I got married so young and kind of just finding myself. And yeah, and my wife was also she was also puti, so it was like I was just all over the place. So yeah, but that was the beginning of my mental health journey.
For me, it's less so the start of it, more so being aware that mental health is a thing, and that it could get bad, you know. So for me, I kind of realized that I actually had to be aware and take care of it, that it's not just an automatic thing that runs underneath my life, in college. So that was, I guess, when I moved to New York for the first year, I realized like it's such a working world, and I'm also in the art and design world. So specifically went to art school, and the hours are tedious. So like I'm working constantly on projects and on the weekends, and like had like one social event maybe for 2 hours on the weekend. And so every 3 weekends or something. So it was just, I think at that point I thought I was okay, I thought I could handle it, but by like 3 months in of doing that, I realized how sad I was getting and like how tired and exhausted, and both physically and emotionally and mentally. So I think that was when I started to make conscious choices about my mental health, to be like, no, I'm not going to do homework right now. No, I'm not going to think about homework even though it's due. Like, I am going to ask for help when I need it, and I can extend my deadlines if I need it. So my mental health is very tied to work, so it's often changing as I work. So yeah, that is my story.
As for me, I think it was when I started college here, and that's only like I think 2 years after I moved from the Philippines, and things were just happening so fast, like so many changes in my personal life, within our family too, and I was still homesick. Like because I was born and raised in the Philippines for 16 years, and like all my friends, my life was there, and then suddenly, okay, now I'm in college, and it's something a lot bigger than I am. When I was thinking about it, and there was just so much pressure and so much, um, I guess, so much expectations on my shoulders, which people did not put on me. It was more so me putting that on myself, because I felt like I still had to perform from how I was back in the homeland, but it's so different, like here in Hawaii, or just in the United States, and moving here, so different. And I felt like some of the things that worked for me before wasn't working, when I started in college, and it was hard for me to embrace the changes, and it felt like, my my mind was like out of control. Like I couldn't even recognize myself, or I didn't know how to be myself. It was like I was kind of like, in the middle of an identity crisis, and that's when I started to see what mental health is, and how it's critical for us to actually be able to reflect and process ourselves, or like have that, how do you call it, intrapersonal reflection kind of thing. And it's related to mental health, and that's when I started to entertain the thought of meeting a counselor and all that, talking about what's really happening with me, my mind, or what I've been feeling, because like there was so much anxiety during those years, like first years of my college. But I'm so thankful that a lot of people surrounded me and like supported me in that way, and that's why like I'm also an advocate for this. Like I want people to get out of their comfort zone and be able to talk about, you know, what's happening to them, really, like what is genuinely happening, you know, within them, within their lives. Yeah, like how you said, like it was never taught, it was never emphasized even in school, or even let alone in church. Like because I grew up in church too. I come from a Christian family. I'm so sorry about that. There's a lot of them here that rev. But anyway, I grew up in a Christian family, and I thought, you know, like I can handle anything that's gonna come my way. But that's never true. You know, it's always important to have that I guess practical thinking, and that's where, you know, counseling came. That's where maybe meeting a psychologist who can, you know, break things down, you know, and really show me what's wrong with me, like with the way I'm thinking, with like the perspectives that I have and all of that. And so my first resort was, you know, prayer, reading my Bible and all that. But yes, it is part of it, but then again, it's not the only like solution. It didn't completely work out for me because yes, I was doing my part, but then nothing was happening, like nothing was changing until I asked a couple of people, you know, what are the other, you know, steps that I can make to actually, you know, unfold what's going on with me, because like I didn't know how to respond to it. The only way was, again, through my faith, prayer, reading.
How I overcame, I would say, like a lot of ways for me to grow is through like my relationships, and it's very accountability based for me. And so I was, during this time, I looked to myself, and then I traveled, and through those relationships I made during my travels, I kind of like got to communicate with people that like on a deeper level who had no background to anything, and kind of just like gave me the affirmation, not that I was like searching for, but just like the clarity that I needed at that time, especially when it came to like, you know, accountability or toxic masculinity, or like, you know, approaches towards aggression. And when things don't go your way, especially like during travel, like you can't just like take it out on anything. You have to tough it out. You have to figure things out. You have to be very adverse and very resilient. So I mean, through that, it was it taught me a lot. So that was kind of like how I overcame like that initial breakthrough when I had that for my mental health.
Yeah, for me, in the ways I figured out how to address mental health specifically for me, it was truly helpful, like kind of like Jerry was saying, that it just was helpful to see other people practice being aware of their own mental health as an example. Because like you said, it's not really something you talk about, like your parents don't really discuss about, like, we are stressed right now, let's figure out how to fix this. It's not really, it's more so like the logistical fixes rather than the emotional fixes. So like Micah, I also grew up in the church, so usually my automatic reaction is still prayer, and it's often talking to people who are like stronger than me spiritually. But I've also realized that it's like also going beyond that too, and that like it's kind of a personal push on yourself to set boundaries. So I think for me the biggest thing after seeing all those examples and seeing the things that have worked before is like evaluating all the things I'm buying into and saying yes to. And like, again, like I said, it's very tied to work for me, my mental health. So setting really conscious boundaries of just like, when is my workday over, when is my vacation day starting, and not letting those things bleed together. But these days, because of quarantine, you live at work, so it's kind of hard again. So I'm still figuring out all those balances, because I'm also trying to figure out too, like the stressors of COVID, in that like financial stability and like relationships, you're far away from family, so you don't have that fulfillment. and friends and all that stuff. So I'm still trying to figure all of that out right now, and it's kind of like you have to reevaluate everything again. So I'm on that journey again. Yeah.
One thing I'll definitely say that has really pushed me in terms of like overcoming, and especially now in my current mental health, is been like finding that voice for my storytelling and really pushing that, especially in this day and age where activism and advocacy is so powerful and so highlighted and so quick to catch fire now, and thankfully. And so like with that, like it's definitely given me a lot of ease, regardless of like whatever like outcomes that happen with other issues and everything like that. It just shows that like that assurance that, you know, you have a unity and that community beyond like what you have already naturally around you. Because like not everyone surrounding you has the same values and beliefs. And so it's nice to know that like because I'm surrounded by activists every day in DC, and everybody advocates for something different, you know? And that's the crazy part, because everyone's values are so different. So yeah, it's just that's been a good overcomer. It's been storytelling.
Yeah, I think as a designer and artist, I'm trying to get there, but myself is like, I'm always questioning myself how pure my intentions are when I storytell through my work. So how do you kind of find that grounding for yourself?
I guess it's like understanding the story that you're trying to tell, and understanding that when you are expressing this story, and if you are truly do care, then you do due diligence to research everything there is on that topic. And from that truly personally viewed, educated point of view, are you telling that story, right? And like that's what your market buys into, you know. And I don't want to call it your market, but you know that's what your following buys into, and those are the people who care about your art and that's want to support you. They trust and support that you as the artist do that due diligence to do that research, so that when you're telling your story, it's educated, you know, or credible.
I do see common threads again of like having to balance the sense of like individualism, because like it's hard when like family structures and sometimes society doesn't like um have those resources and tools to help you succeed, but sometimes they do, and sometimes you have to lean on a community. Would that be?
The first thing that comes to my mind is kapwa, and just like to kind of piggyback off of what we just came from when it comes to community, and how much that affirms one like a singular person. It's really amazing that like, you know, voices are amplified through community. And when it comes to kapwa, and we hear us hearing the Filipino voice and our pride, like it comes with like that unity that comes with it. So it's really dope. I don't know. That's just the first thing that came to my mind.
In terms of how Filipino culture has influenced my approach on mental health, the friends I've created I've met in New York are mostly Filipino Americans actually. So a lot of them were born here, and they're all also designers and artists. And it's just nice to have more than just one thing in common with them. So like we're Filipino, we're common in our industry, we're all this stuff. So I grew up with one Filipina best friend, and there was not really many others who were the same like age as me or common similarity, and we often got judged by a lot of the, you know, titas, titos, and you already know. So they were also the main stressors in our life growing up. So it's really interesting to see the difference, I guess, in that like, oh wow, like you grew up in this country, oh wow, we can talk about decolonizing design because this is our industry. And then we can also talk about how being Filipino in a mostly white workplace is at the same time. So it's been really nice to have that support. And I totally forgot to mention, but I helped find the group on social media called Tagalika. And then we highlight a lot of Filipino creators through there. So it's just been nice to kind of do that work with other Filipina creators. Hell yeah. So yeah, it's been good and bad, but mostly good right now.
Gosh, you guys are doing so well though. Like, so proud of you. I mean, I'm not as an artist as you guys are, but like every time I see Filipinos, showcasing their talent in design and like art, it just makes me so proud. But yeah. As for me, I think um this is hard. That's why like it took me time to like think about it. But I guess what stood out to me is the part where you know how we're so big with collectivism, like one for all for one, and um, having and knowing that like family support will always be there. Like I appreciate that, like you always have um, them, like your parents, even your extended family, to support you in whatever you want to do in life. But at the same time, like that's not always the case. Like a lot of our families, pressure us or push us to doing something that not really we don't want to pursue, per se. But yeah, there's support, but at the same time, like a lot of pressure. Like you gotta keep your family's name, the way people our family has been known for years. So it's like it's so hard to keep up with that standard. um but at the same time, like I know I can always count on them. But again, it's just like there's it's hard to explain, but I know you guys can relate, like totally relate. But yeah, like that's always been like an issue and a problem, even in my family.
I definitely want to address like the lack of like intersectionality within the Filipino community, in terms of like, like prejudice and racism within our community. And it's like really hard, especially in today's climate. It's just like, in terms of culture, we're very like quiet about it. And we never really get to address this conversation like with our family members at the dinner table. And it's like very much so, like it's dooming and looming over us whenever we even think about even having the conversation with our parents, So, I mean, in ways, our culture is affecting us now in terms of mental health. I know that's bearing on a lot of us, especially as within our generation, it's our duty to do so.
A follow up on that too, and that like I think you're so right in that like Filipinos just anger me right now in terms of the political issues in the country. I have a tito who is a pastor, who still is a pastor, who posts Filipinos for Trump content all the time. And I'm like,
that's my dad. That's my dad.
I mean, yeah.
Oh my God.
He's a pastor too. I'm a PK.
Is that him? Oh my God. It really, like you said, like you don't realize how these like minute things that you see and consume really affect you. And it's like, especially when they look like you and you're just like, Tito, why? But yeah, I don't have an answer because I tried to talk to him, but yeah, like you said, there's a lack of intersectionality. Like some Filipinos just want to be so white so bad. That's all I gotta say. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, I'm from San Diego, so it's like it's a very predominant Filipino community, as I'm sure we all know. So it's like it's really crazy because you get to see like that Filipino privilege at that point, and you get to see everyone who literally gets to live within the Filipino bubble and does not have to spend a single day ever being acknowledged as Asian, because to the entire community they're Filipino. They have that identity, but it's that privilege for them to know that and then ignore all of the other issues in the entire country because they're good. They're in, you know what I mean? They're in New York. They're in Chicago. They're in San Diego, SF, LA. Like we're good. Yeah, but that's the. I mean, if you look back and like think about our parents who were born and raised in the Philippines, who like especially back then under their like in terms of I mean, because I understand that I might be one of the few first generations as well here, but to understand that like back in the day with my Philippines, especially living in like Romblon, and to have, especially with the education system at the time in the 60s, like, dude, it's very colonial education mindset. So I mean, just from the start, it's very much base rooted from not even of if they really believe it. I mean, a lot of the, like real talk, like, you know, our past generations were brainwashed by colonialism, and we are the direct result of that. And are all of our problems and grievances going on with our parents now? It feels like, you know, like that's that's directly rooted from there. I mean, that's just, you know, something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, to add to that, you really took me back to my elementary education. I grew up in Cebu in the Philippines, and I went to a private school, private Christian school, and our curriculum was purely Western. And we even had like comic books that depicted white characters, and I didn't think it was like abnormal at all. And we even had a bucket, a coin bucket in the classroom where if we didn't speak English and we spoke our dialect, we had to pay a coin into the bucket just so to train us to practice English in the school setting. Yeah, I see your faces and you're like,
That's crazy.
No,
That's
because
wild.
I can resonate. Like I went to the same school too.
was it an ACE school?
No,
Do
not
you?
AC, but we're a private Christian school and English only speaking campus.
Yep, that's real. Yeah. And like I took that with me to America, you know? and, and like thankfully I kind of realized that I myself have a lot to be proud of. Even when they had that coin bucket thing, I was very hesitant about it even as a child. And I was like, I'm gonna speak Bisaya whenever I want. I'm bis that like whatever. But I didn't let them hear because I didn't want to pay my coins. But you know, anyway, so I guess like in the present time, like I mentioned, like the titos and titas are like all for Trump because it's all about filling their agenda of financial success, right? Filipinos are Filipino immigrants specifically are here in America for financial success primarily because of course we want to be better. But as a result of that, it's just we become too better to care about our poverty, our social issues that we used to have, like the discrimination that we used to face. So I think, like you said, Jerry, it's just you become like kind of stuck in this bubble of like, just like constantly striving for success for your own or for your family, and then you forget like where you came from and how you could help other people. But then another thing I'm struggling with though is that I come from a very privileged position of being in America and being able to evaluate social issues, because in the Philippines you conform to these standards because you have to be successful, you have to earn money. So people whiten their skin because that's how they get a job. People will straighten their hair because that's how they get a job. So, oh, it's so painful, but I think it really carries over to wherever we go in the world, and it goes disregarded. So it's really hard.
Oh my gosh, so funny when you were talking. The first lines I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's me too." Cuz I don't know if you've heard about it, but there was a school, which was my school, who expelled 3 students for speaking in Ilocano, which is our dialect in the northern province, Ilocos region, because it's an exclusively English speaking school, which I didn't learn a lot of my English there. I learned it from church and Disney Channel, just saying. But um yeah, there was just like our Filipino-ness, or the way we can express our identity as Filipinos, our Ilocanos, was not given importance in campus, which should be a basic, which should be a basic right for all of us. But then because like we had to conform to what the school system had, and what our president wanted for everybody, because our president, he comes from Singapore, and their school system there is so it's quite similar to the, the Western education system. So we only had like Filipino class. We only had that Filipino class where we can speak Filipino or our other dialects, but then that was it. Like, or lingua na wika, we would have that, but I don't know, there wasn't much room for us to discover more about, history, like what really happened, with the Philippines. And um, again, it's like it should be an avenue for us to explore that, and even gain, education about like indigenous peoples, because that's very, it's relevant now, like it's happening now, like how our people, like our native people, are being put on the side and marginalized. And like as the next generation, like students ourselves, like during those times, or even like the students now, should be able to, have those conversations and learn how to respond to that, and be able to, be a part of the community that would support them, instead of, you know putting them aside, because like I grew up scared of them, but it's not true. Like, how we learn it from, like, from the books and all of that, or just um, rumors going around. But being able to be educated on that, in that sense, would have saved a lot of, I guess, harm on, like, the native peoples. Like, I don't know, I was just really big on that, because I took a Filipino cultural class, and we talked about um, different groups of native people, like from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And it was so amazing, so beautiful to learn about where they were coming from, and like how they do their lives. And it's beautiful, it's not, Filipinos are not just the Filipinos we know in Manila, the titos and titas who know what it's like to be Western, but Filipinos who are actually, very down to earth, humble, and who know how to use their resources. And so, yeah, I'm really big on that. So when I learned about that, I was like, okay, wow, it's so important to actually put effort in making conversations on that one. And I'm so glad that my teachers, they've been doing research on that too. So, I hope more, especially us, like Filipinos, the in different, and in foreign, in the abroad, um, like, we should also do our part, even when we're far away from home. Like, it's our responsibility as Filipinos.
Do you think like that gets a little shrouded in terms of like intent, right, from diaspora Filipinos perceived by national Filipinos? I'm sorry, the sirens are going crazy right now. But like, just to bring it like in terms of like, what's going on right now. And we could talk about the discussion of like the whole, like, if like the appropriation thing was happening, and if films are misrepresenting Filipinos around the world. Like, do you think, like, he's like, I feel like when it comes to films who are supporting the cultural appropriation, not supporting the cultural appropriation, but supporting the movement, like, I feel like it was a lot of targeting going on against them and that demographic, But as Filipinos, and as Filipinos who want to like share our grievances and tell our story, especially for us that are underrepresented, like, it feels like, there's definitely times where we get silenced by the majority because, they don't even understand what's happening over here. And that sucks because, when we want to tell our story and we want to fight for what's ours, like, even then it's like, you still get silenced by your own people.
Oh yeah, definitely. I get what you mean. It's like they judge us, like, for, like, you abandoned the Philippines and now you try to care. It's like that speaks much more volume than people who are there but they're not doing anything. But here we are trying to fight for, our identity, for our culture, and that should make them guilty, that they have the power to do it. And like, if we have the power to do it and the efforts and resources to do it, then they should be standing up for, our people as well. So like, I like what you said.
Yeah. It sucks because like the Pinay who who pushed the whole movement for the Bakara thing, she was treated as a martyr now with it in the Philippines. So she got trending. She got put as they put a hashtag on her name, called her Philam Karen. It was like horrible. They were like, you don't represent us. Like, you know, go back. You guys are so soft. Like all of this stuff. And it was all over Twitter. They put a petition against her because and it was just like, dang, it was like, man, it's like moments like that, especially when we work so hard to get it, like, you know, as public as it was. And then for our people who, you know, we're supposed to be a part of our heritage, it's like, dang, like, you know? So yeah, that's crazy. It's just one of those moments where it did happen, and it happened recently, and I was definitely hurt by that, for sure.
Going back again to like how our culture affects our mental health, that is a big one, because like you think you're part of a global community, but there's still like divisions in that community, and you're like, where do you side? You know, are you supposed to side? Like, I don't really fit in anywhere. So yeah, that's really difficult. And I always kind of have to disclaim whenever I talk about being Filipino that I am not living in the Philippines, because of that reason, because of just like, I don't want to speak for the people who I haven't been talking to a lot, I guess, or like interacting with for many years, I guess. But then I agree with you guys too, in that like it sucks that they don't understand why we're complaining about it. Like, why? Because they're not here to see like how white people basically just take random POC's cultures to like use.
Yeah, like a whole generation of dismissiveness, like all of that.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to balance, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, like, going on what Michael said, I guess, like, you know, it is our, you know, our duty as Filipinos to like keep pushing that regardless. And so it's like really dope to know that we do still try our best and everything like that. So I mean, yeah, you know, we out here. We out here.
We're representing them. Like, damn.
Yeah, but it's crazy. It's crazy, definitely. I mean, I guess that's like the issue, right? That we want to all figure out, especially, and, you know, to unify. And that's really dope to have platforms like this, along with like subtle Filipino traits where we can bridge those cultures. But I guess it's like up to the people who run it to challenge those like social norms and create those like platforms for the conversation. So
Like,
yeah.
I feel this because I see just so much tension between like the Filipino community everywhere, and that's so hard. And knowing that despite that challenge, here we are still talking. We're all from different locations, and we're still having this dialogue. And so I do want to acknowledge that we do have 10 minutes left, and I do want to take this time to kind of like focus in more on like kind of summarizing all that we've experienced and all that we've said, and try to find a way that we can figure out and kind of name how we can move forward as a community, as a Filipinas community, to engage more in mental health. And so, you know, like something that I've realized as I continue to grow old is that the systems are not meant for Filipinos. The systems are not meant to support brown people, Black people, Indigenous people. And so going forward, what are ways that we can better support and continue to engage Filipinos, Americans, and Filipinos in the diaspora on mental health, and also on everything that we and everything that's kind of tied to it in a more like culturally responsive way, because I think that's really difficult right now because there's so much still tension within like culture itself.
I think like what you said, Jerry, even earlier, is like education on the issues. Like we hit on today, like we don't really know anymore or as much on what the motherland Filipinos are saying, and we don't even know like what the like UK Filipinos are saying. So in engaging like in cultural conversations with Filipinos, like you said, it's research probably, and being really intentional about who your, I guess, research sample is. So for me, I guess, in my application as an artist and designer and creating projects, I really have to embed rules for myself to be very inclusive in my messaging and in my outreach for the stories and even the sources I look at. Like maybe it's not always looking at like primarily Filipino American outlets or something, or maybe it's actually talking to Filipinos from the Philippines directly, because it's been a long time since I've done that. So yeah, I guess like more intentionality and education in who exactly is the Filipino that I'm talking to.
It basically comes down to communication, not just like within like our age group, but actually engaging conversations and dialogues with our titos and titas so they know the reality, you know, and how mental health is a big part of our lives, like how we're going to move forward, not just as individuals but as families and like for generations, you know, because people are going to keep migrating here. Our families are going to keep moving here, and it's always like, you know, transitions and all of these other mental health related issues are going to come up. And if they like the basic support system that we have do not know how to, you know, be open about it, be open about talking and laying out, you know, what possible options we can offer to one another, or like especially to those who are going through something, then like our transitions are going to be easier, like especially for the young people who are going to be moving in. So I feel like just having that, you know, safe zone and allowing them, or maybe like encouraging them to listen to us more and see, you know, how we can bridge that gap.
One thing I definitely want to do is highlight my studio, because our goal and our mission is representation and uplifting minority communities. And so one thing I definitely want to say is, when it comes to engaging with the community and uplifting, one thing you have to do is work with local orgs or create a platform yourself. And like, I mean, when you're embedded within the community, instead of just looking for it, you might as well just start it, create it, and actually mobilize. Because then when you're with other people and you're in the scene doing the work, that's when you're gonna find other people who are actually, you know, on the ground with their feet getting dirty. And like, that's the only way. Like, there's no other, like, by involving yourself and being even in this conversation, you know what I mean? We can share each other's stories, and we can, you know, jump onto each other's networks, thankfully. And that's all we ask for at the end of the day, right? Is to be able to show and give each other the platform that we all know we each other deserve. And like, when it comes to like my studio and uplifting like the minority communities and everything like that, it's really dope and really fun, because along with the orgs that we work with, especially like all the Filipino orgs that we work with in DC and the Asian orgs in the DMV, whenever we work with something else, we have like the backing and the support of the community to say, okay, not only are you just working with some random studio, you're working with the people who represent the Asians of the DC area, you know, and say that like, we have the support of this community and we're here to represent and show you, hey, like, regardless of what the price is or whatever you're doing, if we believe in it and we want to uplift that, you'll have all of the resources that we can give you as allies, you know? So yeah, mobilizing, representation.
Yeah, I just want to quickly add to that too, in that you're so right that when you're looking for a community, you don't realize that it already exists. Like when we started Tagalikha to highlight Filipino creatives, it was literally born from the idea that like obviously Filipinos are not told to be creative. And so I only got to this point because I saw one Filipina doing it, and I was like, if she can do it, I can do it. And then I did it, and then I found the community, and it's like so many of us who's been doing it for years. So it's so empowering to see it. So like you said, representation is so important.
So like for me, it would just be be supportive, of people's achievements and pushing them, to where their strengths are at, encouraging them to keep doing what they're doing best and not be fake. Like, just be genuine, like, I know it's easy to say, but it's hard to do. But I guess when it becomes a culture for us, and it becomes a daily and a regular habit, then it becomes our lifestyle, and that's what I want for Filipinos too. Like, because the more we're going to support each other, the more representation, the more mobility, the more empowerment there's going to be within the community. But then there's so much potential among many of us, but then so many people are like, oh, trying to pull people down. But we should be Filipinos as one, yeah, not divided.
I think I wanted to offer a good example of Filipinos actually supporting each other. I don't know if you guys follow NYC Filipinos, but they often record a lot what Filipinos in the city are doing. And something that they were doing during COVID season, and I think they're still doing it, obviously, because it's still COVID, but it's called Project Barkada. And what they're doing is all these different Filipino restaurants are essentially mobilizing to cook together and get donations from people to feed hospital workers, specifically Filipino hospital workers. So like that is such a beautiful example, because like New York City is such a cutthroat restaurant industry already, and in the middle of COVID, like dang guys, like there's a lot of pride set aside to do this. So it is possible, and even for myself, I feel like that pride is still such an automatic reaction, especially again as a creative, you're like, I have to be better than that person, like, but then it's the conscious decision to not let the automatic reaction, I guess. Like when there's like jealousy in my heart, I'm like, okay, why am I jealous? Is there some insecurity I have right now that like is hitting me right now? So it's like it exists, and it's inspiring because that means I can get there. So I guess that's my example and explanation.
Yeah, it's really crazy because it's kind of like crab mentality is very much so like this gatekeeping kind of thing, right? And it feels like the OG ninangs of whatever city that you were in, like just run it and that's it. I was like, don't even think about the church because that's already game over. Like, but yeah, I mean, and that's, I guess, like when it comes to like crab mentality in the Philippines, especially within the Philam community, I mean, that's again, like, that's what I mean by like understanding that privilege and realizing that we don't even have that seat at the table yet. Like Filipino restaurants barely just got there. Like we're barely going mainstream, and like still, you know, people still talking smack and still being super prideful. But thankfully, you know, like a lot of the pioneers within our generation now are really breaking that mold of pride and that crab mentality, because we're a lot of the move makers and innovators within the creative field definitely understand that inclusivity and that community and that kapwa and all of that involved in being necessary to creating that community. Because without it, then we wouldn't have, like, you know, we wouldn't have a Barkada project at all. Like that would not even be a thing.